Hey, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today we're going to recap the February 10th game of Dungeons & Dragons we played. Thursday night our group got together and we played our normal game of D&D. So this is going to be Dark Queen Ascension presents Adventures in Barovia, our recap of Thursday, February 10th. Stay with me. So, Thursday, our gang had just left Rectavio's tower and was getting back to Albert Lodge. And as they did, there was a stranger, a hunter, on their porch. They all kind of just eyed him wearily, addressed him, said hi, but went on in and went and had their dinner. And we spent the first part of the game, they spent the first part of the game discussing how or what they're going to do next. And really, we spent a lot of the evening talking about what we're going to do next, as the next thing on their plate is how exactly are they going to go and deal with Strahd. And as they wait, Stryder has not yet returned. As they wait for Stryder, they talk about what their next steps were. And then we flip over to Stryder, and Stryder is preparing. It's his evening. This is the evening of the 10th day. It's his evening of the 10th day, and he is having a conversation, learning about the Druids of Mount Baratok. I think that's right. I always get those mountains mixed up. But he's having this conversation with those wildlings, the Arctic wildlings, as the wildlings are preparing his cloak and his trinket as a reward for slaying Sangzor, and they refer to him as Goat Slayer, Sangzor Slayer, and King of the Wildlings, right? So they have their evening, and eventually he will turn in for his long rest. And then we flip back over to the gang in Albert Lodge, and they go into their long rest. And then they take some shifts, standing guard, and middle of the night during Varinka's shift, Varinka hears some singing outside, and there's a stranger in the night, a visitor, a bard who just happens to be out in the middle of the night, wandering around, and so Varinka calls for Gloin and Arena to come help her out, and Gloin goes out there and has a little conversation with her. He's just a bard out there strolling around, enjoying the evening, and they find this. They all think it's Strahd. The stranger calls himself Vasily, but there's no reason to believe he's Strahd, other than he's out in the middle of the night and doesn't seem to be concerned about the evening at all. And so we ended with they let him go and nothing came of it. And then we went back to Stryder, and Stryder was having his long rest. In the middle of his long rest, he was visited by a skeletal raven, and he had to call off the wildlings that were about ready to attack it, as you would expect. A scary skeletal raven that Stryder recognized immediately and jumps up and says, whoa, this is what happens to our magic when we cast it here in Barovia. And so he gets the note from Varinka saying, hey, we're at the Albert Lodge, and he writes back, everything's fine, and he'll head that way. And so he finishes his long rest. Stryder finishes his long rest, and he is given the cloak and a trinket. And why don't we jump over and take a peek at that real quick? And so here we go in the figurine of. Let's start with the ring of. So there isn't really a cloak of cold resistance, but there is a ring of cold resistance. So Christian, if you're watching, you could add that to your inventory. Now here it does say it requires attunement, so that cloak of cold resistance that will substitute So this has a ring. You are not getting a ring, you are getting a cloak, but the powers of the cloak are the same as this ring. And it's just simply, it gives you resistance to cold damage. Cold resistance. All right. And so that's the simple one. It does require attunement. And then the next thing you get is a figurine of Wondrous power. Let's see here. Does it say, as we look at this, a figurine of Wondrous power is a statuette of a beast small enough to fit in a pocket. If you use an action to speak the command word and throw the figurine to a point on the ground within 60 feet of you, the figurine becomes a living creature. If the space where the creature would appear is occupied by other creatures or objects, or if there isn't enough space for the creature, the figurine doesn't become a creature. The creature is friendly to you and your companions. It understands your languages and obeys your spoken commands. If you issue no commands, the creature defends itself, but it takes no other action. Let's jump to this big alert. So we're talking about these. We're talking about the goats of Wondrous power. Right there it is. So click off that, and we go down to the goats. Read through this. The Ivory goats of Wondrous power. These ivory statuettes of goats are always created in sets of 3. Each goat looks unique and functions differently from the others. Their properties are as follows. Goat of traveling can become a large goat with the same statistics as a riding horse. If it has 24 charges and each hour of or portion thereof it spends in beast form, it costs 1 charge. While it has charges, you can use it as often as you wish. When it runs out of charges, it reverts to a figurine and can't be used again until 7 days have passed, when it regains all of its charges. The goat of Travail becomes a giant goat for 3 hours. Once it has been used, it can't be used again until 30 days have passed. The goat of Terror becomes a giant goat for up to 3 hours. The goat can't attack, but you can remove its horns and use them as weapons. One horn becomes a lance +1, or the other becomes a longsword +1. Removing a horn requires an action, and the weapons disappear, and the horns return when the goat reverts to figurine form. In addition, the goat radiates a 30-foot radius of terror while you are riding it. Any creature hostile to you that starts its turn in the aura must succeed on a DC 15 saving throw or be frightened of the goat for 1 minute or until the goat reverts to figurine form. The frightened creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turn, ending the effect on itself if it's successful. Once it is successfully saved against the effect, the creature is immune to the goat's aura for the next 24 hours. Once the figurine has been used, it can't be used for 15 days. Oh, wow. All right, so that's what you got. Christian, you got the Ivory Goats figurine of Wondrous power. With that and your Staff of Kavan, you will be recognized as the leader of the wildlings, of the druids of Barovia. As long as you have that staff, the cloak, and that figurine, they will revere you, and that will break their hold. They will follow you over Strahd. So that's pretty cool. Now, when you've received that, you said Stryder said his goodbyes, and he returned to Albert Lodge, only to find that it was empty. But they had left word that the rest of the group had gone into Vallaki. So, jumping to Vallaki, where they went to the Blue Water Inn, and as they approached Vallaki, they noticed that the Vallakians were preparing for a celebration. This is no surprise. Every 3 days, it seems like there's another celebration in Vallaki. But this one was particularly interesting, as it looked like they were putting up wedding decorations, banners of brightly pastel colored fabrics, and bows and paper flowers all throughout the village. And even when they got to the Blue Water Inn, the Martikovs were hanging banners on their building, and everyone's smiling and doing very happily, like they're forced to be happy. A few minutes later, the Martikov says, "Hey, meet me in the back," and they do, and they start having a conversation, and they're joined by Esmeralda. who is already there and had already started talks with rallying the keepers of the feather. And that's where they started talking about what their next started. They've been talking about their next steps the whole night. The whole night was dominated by what are they going to do next. And so they were there at the Blue Water and talking through that. And they eventually went into the dining area, and that's where Stryder had eventually caught up with them. And so the whole gang is finally reunited, and they are all admiring Stryder's new digs, and Stryder's particularly happy with them too. So that's great. And they start talking about their next steps. And again, let's see if we can go into our next steps. Oh, I forgot to mention the Ring of Resistance. It says here in the Ring of Resistance for cold, it's tourmaline. And we go into tourmaline, and I was curious, what is that stone? And I looked at it, and it's this. So it's got this cool. It says it's this stone. This is Wikipedia. So it says the stone is normally black, but it can be 2 or even 3 colors, and I like this color. So that stone I'm picturing is look very similar to this, but it's more polished and refined, and with less impurities. On the one side, it's kind of got this pinkish magenta hue that morphs into a amberish gold, that morphs into a dark onyx black stone, and that's kind of the brooch that used to button or latch that cloak on you. And that stone is probably what gives the cloak its power. Not to mention the hide of Sangzor. All right, so that is that. So let's jump over to our Google Docs. Our fantastic scribe takes fantastic notes. Here in our Google Docs, we have our DQA Adventures in Barovia, and we dig in here and we look at the notes of this day. And in particular, I want to go all the way to the bottom where we finally come up with our plan, or 10% of a plan, right? So here we have Ruckus is going to go talk to the elves, the dark elves that seem to be the slaves of the Vistani. Stryder, you're going to go round up the rest of the druids and wildlings, the ones at the winery, yeah. Gloin, you've got probably the most work here to do. You want to go to Argenvostolt and see if you can recruit that silver dragon. And not to mention, based on Rictavio's comment and the stories you've heard, you know that there's a mage that's gone mad and is living in the mountains to the north, and you want to go up there and see if you can recruit him. You know very well that you can't just speak charmingly to him and convince him to go. You know that there is some amount of madness that he's fallen into, and you believe that a greater restoration might help that. And so that's the 2 things that Gloin's going to do. Go see if you can recruit the Mad Mage, and go see if you can recruit the Silver Dragon. Now, someone into Ravenloft to reconnaissance via the Abbot's portal. Yeah, and we've got Ta and Olak signed up to go to the Abbot's portal. That's the Abbot at St. Markovia. Go into his portal and see where those locations really go. And that seems like a pretty good idea. As you believe, many of them go into Ravenloft, but do they really? Or do they go other places? You'll have to find out. Next is Varinka and Irina want to get weapons silvered. And we'll circle back to that. Olak is looking for different armor for stealth. He wants to trade in his armor and maybe get studded or a chain shirt. And you have here Firebolt as a signal. So that'll be interesting. Firebolt as a signal. I wonder who would really see that. Firebolt will be from where? And I guess that would. So part of this is there's a wedding in 3 days hence, or two long rests, the 3rd day from now. And everyone's been invited. The whole realm has been invited to Ravenloft to celebrate the wedding of Strahd. And so I suppose it's from this gathering that there will be a firebolt. And once they see that firebolt, that will be the signal to start the rebellion. Okay, so... circling back to silvered weapons. And this is where we had a conversation through our text message. And I love the text messages. I love that we're engaged outside of the game. That on a Friday afternoon, when, let's face it, no one really wants to work on a Friday afternoon, right? It'd be much more fun to talk about D&D as we debate kind of what it would take to silver weapons. Now, I looked it up. If we go to just Google and you hear say silver weapons D&D, it says silver weapons in D&D are weapons that are plated with silver, not made out of silver. Silver is a soft metal in real life, and so let's dig into this a little bit. I thought I clicked on it. There it's going. All right, unique and exotic weapons are staple high fantasy epic quests to uncover ancient crafting knowledge, and crafting the item you need to defeat the villains is fun and a tested story arc for those here to learn and grow alongside. Good news, silver weapons is that you won't have to go through the headache at most tables. However, what are silver weapons exactly? What benefits do they provide to the adventurers that use weapons or ammunition from the bows or crossbows? Turns out this addition to your weapon collection could be helpful in some clutch circumstances. Well, those aren't really the questions we were answering. Let's look here. Silver weapons are plated with silver, not made of silver. Silver is a soft metal in real life, meaning a sword or arrowhead made from pure silver would break or chip quickly in a fight. However, by coating a weapon in silver, you get the benefits of iron or steel's rigidity, but the properties of silver when you need them. And here we go here we go. So this is right out of the D&D basic rules. So some monsters have the immunity to resistance to non-magical weapons are susceptible to silver weapons. So cautious adventurers invest extra coin to plate their weapons with silver. You can silver a single weapon or 10 pieces of ammunition for 100 gold pieces. This cost represents not only the price of the silver, but the time and expertise needed to add silver to the weapon without making it less effective. All right, so so the question was, okay, you can do that, but how long does it take to silver a weapon? When we look this up, the first and favorite answer here is that it would take 3 days for an amateur blacksmith in a town, or 4 hours for a master. And so they were probably somewhere in between, and that's for one weapon. And these guys have a whole handful of stuff. So in our text conversation, I relented and I said that, okay, you may have your weapons dipped in silver and silver plated that way. However, without the special bonding agents of modern blacksmithing, these silvered weapons are probably only going to last one use, one battle. And after that, the silver is going to chip off and it's not going to be as effective. So that's, but they will have the property in which they damage the creatures where they wouldn't normally be damaged. Now, there was a request to have them add 1d4 damage, and sorry guys, I rejected that. So that is a silver weapon. And with that, we pretty much ended the night. We have our plan, and next week when we get together, we will talk through all of our individual goals and whatever other surprises I may put into the game. So go back to, and so that was last week's. That was February 10th, Thursday, our normal D&D game, our Dark Queen Ascension's Adventures in Barovia, as we are getting close. We are getting close to confronting Stryder, and we'll have to see how that goes. So hopefully you're enjoying it. Hopefully things go the way you want. And until then, we'll see you next week. Thanks.